Hello everyone, welcome to this new video from Cloud World. My name is Santiago. So today we're doing a follow-up from the last topic that we covered about managed identities. So we saw what is a managed identity on the previous video, and we also saw some of the practical examples and what is actually the goal of using a managed identity in the Azure world instead of using like the usual string connection and basic configuration that rely on users, keys, and everything. So in this new video, we will be creating a managed identity using the Azure CLI. Also, we will be creating an Azure Key, which is going to help us out for this initial demo. And after that, we are going to give permissions to our managed identity to be able to read secrets from our key vault. So this video is going to give us a coverage on how to create a managed identity and how to relate those roles into the Azure side. So let's begin with the first step. We are going to be creating the identity using the Azure CLI. Just as a reminder, you also have the option to use PowerShell in order to create the resources, which is another tool that Azure also offers and you can install in your local machine. So feel free to translate these commands into the PowerShell scripting. Both of them will achieve exactly the same goal. I also encourage you to practice a lot with the CLI, especially if you are preparing for the 104 or the 204 exams from the Azure platform. So in our first step, let's create the identity using the AC identity and the operation create. So as you can see, for this command, we use the AC identity create operations, and we need to provide a couple of things. The first thing is the name, which is actually the name that you want to give to your managed identity. You can choose whatever name you like in here. We also need to provide the resource group where this managed identity is going to be stored with. And as most of the Azure resources, we need to provide a location to store the resource. In this case, we are choosing the East US as default. The options that are after the pipe, like convert from JSON and select object operations, are specific from PowerShell. I am going to be using this just to hide some of the, let's say, more sensitive information from my Azure account. But I encourage you to execute the queries on your local machine without using any of these two operations, the convert from JSON and select object. So you can see the full JSON response and understand the other properties that are being returned by the operation, like for example the client ID, the principal ID, the tags, the tenant ID, and the type of resource that you just created. So let's execute the first step, and this will be very quickly. So as you can see, we already got our response. We just created the Azure Labs managed identity, which is located in the East US and is part of the resource group Azure Labs. There is another option to list a managed identity using the CLI in case you want to maybe come back into the future and try to grab some of the information. And in this case, then again, we can leverage the AC identity operation, in this case with the list verb. And this is going to get all the information for all the identities that you have in your system. Then again, I will be taking advantage of the convert from JSON and the select object just to display some basic information. So as you can see on screen, we already have two managed identities. The first one was created automatically by the creation of the AKS cluster. We will speak about this one in later videos, so let's skip that one for now. On the second line, you see we have the one that we just created, and so that means this resource already exists in the Azure portal after the creation. Now that we have our managed identity created, let's create a key vault. This key vault is going to be like the test or the guinea pig resource in this case, just to create this resource and attach a role to the managed identity that is going to allow the managed identity to manage secrets into the key vault instance. So let's use the AC key vault operation, in this case with the verb create, and we need to provide the name of the key vault. Remember, the name of the key vault must be unique in the global resources, so if you try to use this name by yourself, it is going to tell you very likely that this name is already being used, because I'm going to be creating this key vault. So try to give it a meaningful name to your key vault and also make it unique. Once more, we have the resource group, and we have one particular flag that is actually very important for the keyboard: enable RBAC authorization. So the enable RBAC authorization is one of the most recent integrations for the keyboard. And just as a reminder, when you work with keyboard, you have two options. You have one, which is the RBAC role-based authentication control in this case, to handle the authorization, which is exactly what we are going to be doing using the managed identity. And the other option is to use an Azure keyboard policy, which allows you to create a policy with a particular set of operations and permission, and that is going to give you a key back, which you can use as part of your string connection. As we spoke on the previous video, we are trying to avoid this kind of situation using keys and stuff like that, because that could put your application on risk and maybe give information to wanted people. So we are going to be skipping working with any policies from now on. So we are going to be using RBAC in this case. So let's create our keyboard. This might take a couple of minutes, so I will be back when we create this resource. Okay, now that our keyboard has been created, this took like a minute. It's pretty quick. We can already go to the Azure portal and explore those resources. So let's go into the browser, and we can see that we already have our keyboard Azure Labs key created in here, and we have all the basic information. Also, I want you to show you that we also have the managed identity created in here, and I want you to pay a special attention to the screen, because the Azure role assignment is going to show us later the role that we assign. So as you can see, so far we don't have anything assigned, so that means this managed identity so far, it is not too meaningful because it doesn't have permissions to do anything. So let's go back into the console. Let's do a cleanup in here. Now, in order to be able to assign a role, we need two things. We will need the target or the ID of the object that we would like to give permissions to, and also we will need the ID of the managed identity service principal or user, which we would like to assign those permissions over. We will also require to have the role name, so we are going to be exploring that in a minute. I will be back to the browser for a minute, and I will show you something very quickly. Most of the Azure resources will have a unique ID that look exactly like the example that you are seeing right now on the screen. So it is subscription, and this information is going to contain your subscription ID, the resource name, the provider name, the resource type, and the resource name of your resource. If you take a look into the second line, this will be an example of our keyboard. So we have subscription, we will have a GUID, which represents the subscription ID that you own, and the resource group, we have the Azure Labs, and the provider in this case is Microsoft.keyboard. In this case, the resource tab we are working is a Vault, and the name of that resource is the Azure Labs keyboard, which is the resource name. The main reason that I wanted to show you here is because in the console we are going to be extracting that information, like I said, in order to assign a role to access this particular keyboard. So in order to do that, let's store this information into a keyboard variable. In this case, we will be using the keyboard operation, but in this case we will be using the show one, which is going to retrieve a single keyboard from the system. You can use the show operation with most of the Azure resources throughout the CLI, in this case with keyboard. We provide the name of the keyboard, which is our target, the resource group as always, and then again I will be using the operation from PowerShell. In this case, those are pretty helpful because that will allow me to extract the ID from the response. So now my variable key ID holds the ID just as an example I just showed you previously, and I will be using that later. Well, besides the keyboard, we also need the principal ID from the managed identity. So the managed identity not only will have the ID as an example that I showed you previously, but also has a principal ID, which is a unique global identifier that is going to be the representative for that ID throughout your tenancy. So in this case, instead of the standard ID for the managed identity, we will require to have the principal ID. So in this case, we will be using this my ID variable. I will be using then again the identity object and the show operation once more, providing the name of the managed identity, the resource group, And in this case, as you can see, for the select object, we would like to select the principal ID. Now that we have the ID of the object that we would like to assign the roles, and also the object of the managed identity, which is going to be taking those permissions, we will need to assign a role. So the next command is just to give you an example of the things that we can do throughout the assignment of roles. So using the AC role definition list, you can have access to all the roles in the Azure side. So as you can see, there are too many. These are all the roles that are available for you, and you can use mostly any of these roles to assign to your managed identity. Just take a look into in a quick example, execute this command locally, so you can explore once more all the roles and all the information that is provided with the response. So for the final step, we will use again the AC role. In this case, we will be using the assignment operation, operation and the creation verb. So in this case, we will need to use the assignee object ID, which in this case is going to be the ID of the managed identity, but the principal ID. So as you can see from the my ID object, I am extracting the principal ID because my ID is actually an object exactly for the key KB ID variable. Those are objects, so I'm accessing directly those properties. The next part is the assignee principal type, which is in this case it could be a service principal. This could be also from the value user if you are assigning the permissions to a particular user in this case. It could be a group or a foreign group, depending on the use case that you would like to cover. So today we are using a managed identity, so that translates into the Azure portal to the service principal. An important note in here, service principal are like being slightly deprecated slowly from the Azure side, and managed identity is taking over this position in the Azure security. That will eventually happen. So for now, we can say that managed identity has a very similar role to the service principal. Now we need to provide a role. In this case, this is just an string. In this case, we are going to give in the key vault secrets officer permission. This officer permission is going to allow the managed identity to access anything throughout the secret. So that means reading and writing secrets into the target key vault. Now here comes the scope, which is the most important part besides providing the managed identity, and is which resource do you would like to assign those permissions. In this case, we are sending the key vault ID in order to do that. Then again, I am leveraging a couple of PowerShell operations in order to assign this. So if we translate this operation, we are giving to the to my managed identity permissions over the key vault that we created using the role assignment key vault secrets officer. So as you can see, we already got a response in here. So let's go into the Azure portal and explore a little bit how it looks like. Now on the Azure portal, we can see we have the key vault secrets officer assigned to the Azure Labs key vault. This is when I go through the Azure portal and explore the managed identity. I can see the role assignments that I have created in here. And also if I go to the key vault instance and I access the access control IAM properties, we can see that our managed identity Azure Labs have access to that resource as well. So in this case, you can see we already have the permissions assigned and we have everything set up. So on the next video, we will be deploying a very basic application into the AKS cluster. We are going to explore the YAML files. We will cover what is a deployment, how it works, what we define, what is a pod. And in the video after, we will deploy an application that is going to be using the managed identity and accessing information into this key vault. So we will cover a lot of topics on that video. So thank you for joining me today and see you in the next video. Bye.